Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff Mom Never Told You, production of iHeartRadio. And welcome to another happy hour, despite the title of this one. I was just kind of playing on Never Been Kissed, which is sort of related to what we're talking about today. I wouldn't call this an unhappy hour. It's more like Anney has a lot of nerd thoughts and also thoughts about asexuality hour / 20 minutes.
I like that.
Yes. As always with these, we're just asking you to hopefully join us for something that is relaxing, a time in your day. You can take a break, whatever that means to you. And also, as always, drink responsibly if you choose to do so.
Yep.
What are you sipping on, Samantha?
I am sticking to my bubble water or bubbly water.
Nice.
I keep confusing how to pronounce this because in my head, it is bubble, but then it's got that little accent mark, so it's bubbly. But then there's that commercial, which is Bublé, which I'm not a huge fan of him in general. But I'm like, I am now 3 pronunciations through, and I still can't remember which one is correct. I'm sure it's bubbly, I think.
I don't know. Now you confused me.
I have too. So I am actually not a sponsor, but you got it through a sponsorship. SodaStream water, which you gifted me. Thank you very much. That's what I'm drinking. Keeping it crisp.
Keeping it crisp. People have such strong opinions about bubble water. I offered some bubble water to a friend of mine the other day, and she recoiled as if she was a cat and I'd thrown water on her.
I mean, I like bubble water for the longest time. I was like, I like it either way. And I remember you telling me that one of our friends and the coworkers, that's all she would drink. And I was like, that's unusual. What? That's the only way. And then now that I've gotten my little SodaStream, I'm like, yeah, I get it now. There's something to it.
It's refreshing. It's crisp.
It is.
Yeah. I'm drinking red wine from a box because that's where I am today.
Red wine.
That song. You can't not hear that song you say red wine. I have a character in our Dungeons & Dragons campaign. Her name was Red Wine. And she was the gossip.
There's so many questions to that.
Well, it was spelled interestingly.
I have questions, but we'll save.
Okay. We'll put a pin in that. We'll come back to that later. All right. So I apologize to Samantha before this one. I think I made you kind of nervous because I'm really going to nerd out hard.
Wait, let's rephrase this. You didn't just apologize. You started laughing and snickering, making me think I did something like my usual self of being goofy. And then you're like, oh, I don't know if you're ready for this. And I was like, what?
It's just because we live in such different worlds that this is a hot button topic in the Star Wars community right now. And I know to you, you're just gonna be like, but it's people are fighting over this fiercely.
Okay.
Yes. So I don't think I'm gonna get into any spoilers about Book Boba Fett, but that is what inspired this whole conversation, which I wanted to talk about this thing that I've noticed in this conversation and in fan fiction, wherein people are writing stories or comments that if you are someone who goes through life without ever experiencing meaningful romantic love, then that is the saddest thing that could ever happen to you. And that your life is essentially you were never loved. So what does it mean? No one could love you. No one ever loved you. And as an asexual person, I kind of was like, wait, let's think about this a little bit. Because I do get what they're talking about in their issue. And so I'll get into that in a second. What triggered this is the Jedi attachment theory. Okay? So you're going to have to bear with me a minute, Samantha.
Okay. I like this. Is this clinically?
Yes.
Phrased. Okay, here we go.
People are fighting over this. Oh my gosh. Also worth noting that this is the Jedi religion is based on Buddhism, so it's also kind of the religious aspect going on. And there's a lot of religious trauma that we're going to talk about in a future episode going on with this whole thing. But also, this whole thing is part of some people's religion, so something else to keep in mind. But all right. So for Jedi, and I guess this is open for interpretation, and I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm doing it. You're not supposed to have possessive attachment, unhealthy attachment. You can have relationships. You can be in love. You can do all that stuff that a lot of people are like, oh my God, they can never be loved. You can, it's just kind of frowned upon because you have to be able to let the person go if they die. You have to be able to let someone go, and it's really hard to do. And so for a lot of people, they feel like they shouldn't even risk it. Like, you can have relationships if you've seen like the movies or shows. Almost all of them have relationships with people, friendships and close partnerships, and even sexual relationships and romantic relationships. It's just that you have to be able to let that person go if something happens to them, and don't give in to kind of this anger and hate and rage and become a dark side force user. There is a lot of gray area in that. And also, the prequel trilogy is sort of about the Jedi Order losing their way and the pressure of not having attachments leading to people not telling you, like Anakin Skywalker not telling you that he has an attachment, and perhaps he really could have used some help. So it's attachment to the attachment is bad, is what I like to say. You can have an attachment, but if you're too attached to the attachment, that's the issue. All right. So I don't know what they're doing in Book of Boba Fett, and that's part of my issue, is I'm not really sure what you're saying. I don't know if Luke is misinterpreting it or if he's really scared. I have no idea. But anyway, what we're talking about right now is, I've seen a lot of people write stories ever since then because they're so upset at this idea that, like, you're telling me Baby Yoda could never be with the Mandalorian? What? How could that be wrong? Oh my God. You're telling me Luke is going to be alone forever? Oh no, he's never going to be loved. What could be worse? And I've read some that are really, really beautiful, actually, really, really sweet. And I do get the idea of, like, if you feel pressured, if you're the last Jedi and you've got to uphold it, and you've got your father as Darth Vader, and how sad it must be that you feel like you can't have these relationships, even if you want them. But the way people are writing about it, I feel like is missing that, yes, there are asexual people. And there's other type of love too. Like, it doesn't have to be romantic love. You can be loved by friends, and it can be just as meaningful. You can have, family relationships that are just as meaningful. You can have all these other things. And I think, as we've talked about so often in our media, there's that pressure. You've got to find your one true love. And that is the meaning of your life. And we've romanticized it so much. And it is romantic. And I do get the appeal of this idea. But also, like we've talked about so much, we got to be careful with these things we see in media over and over and over again that aren't realistic and aren't representative for everybody. And also, just to note, in a lot of our entertainment, this possessive love is painted as something that is romantic. And I think we've seen this a lot with entertainment that, especially towards young girls, where the male character, when you think about it, is kind of stalkery or kind of possessive, and it's not a healthy relationship. And so part of this that I've seen in this conversation is almost like people aren't realizing that is unhealthy. You know what I mean? Like, it's like they're sort of missing a lot of these unhealthy depictions of love. They're getting mad that characters can't have them or whatever. And this is a generalization. I'm not really speaking about anybody specific right now. They're getting mad about it. And it's like they're not realizing that it's not romantic, it's unhealthy. And to have that sort of, I don't know, painted as that there's a level of unhealthiness to that as well. That idea of this great tragedy of, if you've never been loved, then it means you're either unlovable or something is romantic love.
Oh, yeah.
Something has gone wrong and it's so tragic. Which, again, we've talked about this too. I totally get, like, if that's something that's important to you, that's painful. If you want that, you can't find it, that is painful. I'm just saying, like, we should also consider the other side.
Right. But let's go back to the fact that you said that if that's something important to you, is it important to you because that's what you want, or is it important to you because that's what society tells you you're supposed to have, and that makes you a good woman or a desirable woman? And if you're not desired, then therefore you are of no worth? Because for me, it was the missing out part for the longest time. Don't get me wrong. My partner and I have a good relationship and we're fine. But I've been single up until recently. Like majority of my relationships did not last too long where I got too committed. Whole different conversation. And part of that for me was because, I'm actually okay single. And yes, I would love this. This would be a bonus, but it doesn't make me. It doesn't create a new person. I don't become a whole new thing as if I'm a better creation because of this. It hasn't necessarily done that. Am I happy and content? And is it not bothersome? All of those things, yes. Yeah. But does that mean if we were to break up today that I would be a whole different person and therefore I couldn't be as happy? No, I'm still who I am. And of course, this goes back to the same thing about, when men specifically do the clapbacks of this is why you're single or they're always going to be single. And now women are responding, are you threatening me with a good time? Like, what do you mean? It's that whole level of like, you know what? For the longest time, we were told this is how you make a complete wholesome life is to be truly in love. And these unrealistic ideas of love, let's just go ahead with that. Like when you were talking about really unhealthy relationships, I'm thinking Twilight for the longest time. So many young girls are like, yes, I want him to be so obsessed with me that he's so controlling and won't let me see any of my friends and pop up in my bedroom without my permission. Wait, what?
Right. Exactly. And I guess like another, not disclaimer, but a clarification is I feel in these conversations a lot of time what we're talking about, I've been saying romantic love, but I think it's more romantic sexual love. Because you can also be, because I would say I'm asexual by romantic, but you can also be like the other way. So there's like that aspect of it as well, of it has to be sexual in nature. And it was another one of those moments where to me, and I know I've talked about this before, and some of you listeners have written in about it, and I really appreciate it. To me, it's never been weird when a character doesn't end up romantically with somebody. But when I was watching this conversation play out, and I'm telling you, Samantha, people are pissed.
Right.
They were acting like it's super weird. He's just going to be alone.
Which is hilarious because it didn't cross my mind until you brought it up. Yeah, the very first we thought he was going to get together with Princess Leia. His sister, and it didn't happen, thank God. And then that was not his pursuit. End of story. Yeah, I think that's absolutely a thing that I didn't even notice until people started being like, but what about? And that might be just projection once again.
Yeah.
And I think when you were talking about the whole level of romance and sex in general, once again, it's kind of like that tale I used to tell about my grandmother. God bless her. I loved her. She was one of my favorite people. But she would ask me every time I came home from college, are you dating anyone? My response, no. It's okay. You still have time. But the fact that my conversation with her centered and began like that was an automated like moment in my head of like, yep, there's something wrong with me for not having a relationship. And for my family, like, shoot, my siblings would bring home someone they were dating at 14. And I did not bring anybody home until last year. At 40. Like that's who I am. It never was a thing for me. But yeah, I definitely, we've talked about, are we abnormal? Are we the unusual people here? And are we doing this wrong? Because that has been the characteristic. And it took me for so long to feel like, oh, it's okay. I truly am. Even to this day, like I've now settled in and more confident in my decisions, but I still question, well, should I want to be married? Shouldn't I want, since I found a relationship, we've been committed for a while. Shouldn't I want to be? But I don't. There's nothing in me that's like, yes, I need a wedding. I want people to give me presents, sure, but not necessarily do it from a wedding.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly one of those things where I'm like you, where I felt the pressure for sure, and we've talked about that a lot. But I've also never. It doesn't occur to me until somebody puts that pressure on me, if that makes sense. Most of the time, every now and then, I'll be like, should I have done this? But in general, I kind of don't think about it, which is I feel like, I don't know. That's something that I do feel is different than a lot of what my friends experience, and that was sort of. I'm glad I've had those talks with them and I can appreciate like how important it is for them. It's just not something that I've experienced. And I know we've talked about this before. Mark Hamill's been very open. It's like Luke is whatever sexuality you want him to be. And I will say a lot of people do write him as asexual in fan fiction. Or not a lot, but I'd never seen that before in my life.
Yeah.
And now I'm seeing it. But usually he has these pretty strong relationships and even sometimes romantic relationships and that. So I totally get the viewpoint of like the tragedy is that he feels the pressure to do this and therefore is going to be sad forever. It's just the way some people are talking about it as if like there are other like it's a romantic and sexual love doesn't. Yeah, you can have meaningful life and relationships outside of that. And it doesn't have to be tragic. I can understand that it could be, again, if this is not something he actually wants to do, but just,
calm down. It's okay.
People are so mad you don't even know. Oh my God. People are like devastated. And I also want to say, I said it so clearly earlier as if I am the end all be all of what Jedi attachment is. I'm pretty sure this is the original intent, and that's what a lot of the creators said. I admit that there are different interpretations, and I shouldn't have said it so confidently as if I'm the only one. But I think this is what was intended. And that, again, that's sort of my issue right now is I don't know what they intended with their choice, which leaves me in a bit of a weird spot. But a
lot.
It is. And I have read a lot of beautiful introspective fan fiction about what this could all mean. Well, thanks for letting me have this moment and listening to me talk about Jedi attachment. I could forever. But anyway.
I hope this becomes a term in the DSM-6. I really do.
Yes. No, I think it should be like on dating apps. Where do you stand on the Jedi attachment?
Create this test and let's see if people will take it.
Oh my gosh. Well, and also I know people are going to get mad at me because obviously, unless something goes terribly wrong, Grogu and the Mandalorian are not romantically attached.
Oh, that would be super odd.
No. Yes. So I was just saying people were really mad about that. I was not implying that was a romantic relationship.
I was like, that takes it into
no.
Woody
I'm
his adopted daughter.
Yes.
Thing.
No, I was just clarifying my own words. There's no, they would never, ever do. Oh, God. I'm pretty sure they would never, ever do that.
That was a moment. You got me scared.
I'm sorry. I've made things worse. As I usually do with these nerd topics. I try to make things better. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us and for listening. If you have any thoughts on this, oh my gosh, please let me know.
She needs all of this.
I do. And you can send them to our email, which is stephaniemomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at momstuffpodcast or on Instagram at Stuff I've Never Told You. Thanks as always to our super producer, Christina.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I've Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.